Hey, Mega Techie here. Welcome to another adventure on troubleshooting an iPhone 8. A customer of mine brought this phone in to obviously get it repaired. He claimed that the issue is with the microphones, so people cannot hear the person who's using this phone, neither when it's on loudspeaker nor when it's using the earpiece. It's always a good practice to check the phone in order not to address something incorrectly. So while I was checking the phone by calling the customer service number, I realized immediately that the proximity sensor is not kicking in. The proximity sensor and the secondary microphone of the phone are on the same module. Sometimes one faulty module can affect other relative modules, like a bad secondary microphone can affect the other microphones on the phone. Since it is fairly easy to replace the front camera flex, which contains the secondary microphone, let's go ahead and address that issue. There are shed loads of how-to guides available on YouTube and other websites regarding how to replace a new screen, a new charging port, or a front camera flex, but the intention of this video is basically to show the procedure of troubleshooting a problem rather than being a how-to guide on replacing something. Therefore, if you see the video is sped up at some points of this episode, it is just to save time to focus on the goal of this video. Immediately I realized that the charging port has been worked on by somebody inexperienced. Someone had fastened the screw so tight that it broke that piece that holds the microphone, which is basically just coming from lack of experience. Whenever I see any untidy repair had been done by some other repairs person, I take photos just to be at the safe side. You never know how a repair is going to go or how this phone could have been damaged by someone else. Especially when you see signs of damage done by somebody not that experienced. As you're gonna notice in the next few seconds, the front camera flex of the phone has been physically damaged and it's actually creased at the edges. It's been sort of handled badly by some person that wasn't experienced enough. So let's go ahead and replace this bad camera flex with a new one. It's always an excellent practice to replace the missing screws and parts. If you have them, replace them because it adds value to the quality of your repair. I noticed the tiny plastic frame around the sensors and camera flex is missing, and also the frame around the front camera. So I had them both and I replaced them. There is a tiny little mesh on the earpiece which you hear through that, and that mesh was blocked with dust, so I gave it a good clean with a brush. And I cannot emphasize enough about how important it is to replace the missing screws or missing tiny parts. And although it takes time to do so, it really adds value to the job you're doing, and you'll be having a happier customer. So let's switch on the phone and see if we've made any differences. Well, the moment of truth. As you can see in the video, the proximity sensor is kicking in, which is a very good sign since it's doing what it wasn't doing before. As I checked the sound, it still had problems with transferring the sound to the other side of the line. So the sound was feedbacking in the louder speaker, and you could hear your own voice looping within the sound system of this device. Although the proximity sensor problem is all sorted, but the main problem the customer brought this phone in for is not sorted yet. Well, the iPhone 8 is still not capable of transferring the sound to the other side of the call. At this point, I was fairly sure that there is no escape from replacing the charging port. There are two primary microphones at the bottom of the phone which are mounted on the charging port, and basically, unless we fix that, we cannot make sure that the whole sound module is gonna work properly. The charging port on an iPhone 8 is not only charging the phone, but also is a host to a few other modules such as the loudspeaker, the tactile module, a couple of antennas, the microphone. So it connects all these modules onto the main board of the phone, and it's also buried under the main board. So to remove that, you normally remove the logic board. So let's go ahead and remove that charging port. In order to replace the charging port on an iPhone 8, I always recommend to fully remove the main board, because physically damaging the main board is almost irreversible. Remove all the parts that are attached to the charging port, such as the loudspeaker, the tactile module, and basically anything else, any screws that's connecting it to the chassis. And then you need to heat it up to loosen the glue underneath. Do not rush the repair. Don't pull, push, wrestle with the phone. If you do the homework properly, it should come off fairly easily. So all you have to do is to follow the instruction. There are detailed instructions available both on YouTube or on other websites. All you have to do is to follow them step by step and to do it properly. At this stage, I managed to remove the charging port from the chassis, as you can see in the video, and I'm trying to push the new charging port back in place. Just be as gentle as possible to the components on the charging port. Microphones are connected delicately to the charging port, so if you're not careful with it, you'll be damaging it, and there would be no point replacing the charging port, because in the first place you were going to replace it to get the microphones working. And all you have to do is to be careful, just make sure everything is in its place, and you'll be good to go. Parts will go back on the charging port, like the tactile module and the loudspeaker. They will be going back on the charging port in the reverse order. So however you disassembled it, just put them back in reverse order. In order to partially free up the board, I removed two screws. These are two-sided screws. Actually, they fit the main board in place, and also two tiny screws can screw on top of them. You can use a flat screwdriver to unscrew them, or the proper tool is a convex screwdriver, crosshead convex screwdriver that fits onto it and properly removes it, but a flathead screwdriver will do the job. Always properly inspect the replaced part. Check for missing screws, check for bad connections, or if the antennas are connected properly. Make sure all screws that you have removed are back in, and that's very important because some of these screws connect parts together and make connections. And moment of truth, we need to put back the screen on and check the phone to see if we have made the difference we were supposed to. Of the video, I told you that some faulty modules can affect others, and this was actually the case because the charging port was not letting the secondary microphone to function properly when you put the phone on loudspeaker, because it is using another microphone while you use the loudspeaker. And this is really interesting because you get that very often. And now let's try to make a call and see if we have fixed it. At first I was a bit excited and I had my phone on the loudspeaker, and with the sound looping back and forth, I couldn't really tell if it was working properly, so I had to move my phone a bit away and speak on the iPhone 8 to see if the problem is all sorted. So I'm gonna move my phone away and see if... Hello? 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 And yes, of course, I could hear the iPhone 8 both on loudspeaker and when it's on the earpiece. That's really comforting. And let's put the screen back together, put the shields on, screw them all back in, and basically call the customer and let him know that the phone is fixed so he can collect the phone. I always enjoy a successful repair, and if you enjoyed the same as I did, please consider a thumbs up, sharing it, and subscribing to this channel. And until next time, cheerio!